Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Happy to have you on this Thursday. Hope you're off to a great start. Lucas Panziga back there making it go. We got you for the next 3 hours until 1 o'clock, and then we'll turn things over to Blaine and Mickey. Got some things to do in the meantime. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. We would be happy to have you at any point. The FNM Bank chat, always interesting, always engaging. You can live stream the show on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch. The rare good news to start the morning, to start the Titans, or to continue the Titans work week. Lucas, Treylon Burks being at practice is about as positive a thing as you can kind of look at right now and say, all right, signs of growth, signs of progress, signs that he is healthier, which is, of course, the thing that is most important. And as they try and get as many reinforcements back as humanly possible before Monday Night Football in Miami, perhaps he can do something beyond 9 snaps on offense in an NFL game. We talked about how low the bar is yesterday. That's fine. We know the terms of engagement.
We expected him back, though, right?
Sure.
He got snaps on Sunday.
But this is the first time that we've talked to him. And I think, it kind of contextualizes just how scary this concussion thing is. This is Treylon Burks in the locker room. He was carted off the field back on November 2nd. That was the Thursday Night Football game in Pittsburgh. Missed 3 games, and due to concussion. This is the second concussion that he's had. It's now requiring him to wear what we talked about, the Q collar, which is something specifically designed to help with blood flow and the levels of oxygen that he gets to his brain, as well as kind of limiting basically how much movement happens inside his head whenever there's that kind of contact that is fair to expect will happen in an NFL game. He doesn't remember much from Pittsburgh. Basically, they've shown him the replay, and that's what he's got to work off. This is Treylon Burks in the locker room yesterday.
I don't recall really much from Pittsburgh, other than, just heard that we didn't win that game. Yeah. And, just moving forward. So.
You're seeing the replay?
Concern, Treylon, that 2 in 1 year like this, 2 concussions in a year, does that make that even more concerning for you?
Can you repeat that for me again?
The fact that you've had 2 concussions in a year's time, does it make it, I know concussions in general are very concerning, does that make it even more significant?
I mean, everybody that plays the game is vulnerable to concussions, so I don't really think about it that much. I just go out there and play the game, and, whatever is in God's willing happens, it happens, and I know that he'll take care of it.
You see the replay of it, and what'd you hear maybe from people after you were carted off?
Just bad fall, and there was really nothing that I could do to prevent it. So,
is there anything specific in the recovery process that was harder this time than maybe last year?
No, sir, not at all. I would say I feel good. Things happen.
Yeah.
But just keep going about the way that I am, and let God take care of it. Vrabel?
Yeah.
I think he handled it, the best way for the team and for my safety. All I can do is just keep, leaning on them and my teammates and doing whatever is right for the team. Yeah, I mean, I've been feeling better ever since, and I'm just, ready to get out and do what I do.
How hard is it to miss practice?
It's hard, as being a football player, when you love the game, missing games is not fun at all. So, it's been hard, but, I'm just thankful that I'm back at the position that I am.
So that's Treylon Burks in the locker room yesterday. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't recall really much from Pittsburgh, other than I heard we didn't win that game. That's scary stuff, man. So, he's had so many different things that have bogged him down. But, and I went through this last night on the primetime show, Lucas. I guess I just had to remind myself how little he has done, though, when he's been available. So, do you remember offhand, like, generally, ballpark, what his numbers were his rookie season?
Yeah, in the range of 400 receiving yards, though just the one touchdown.
Had one touchdown, so he technically had two.
Yeah, not including the fumble recovery touchdown.
He recovered one of Derrick Henry's fumbles for a touchdown. 444 yards, 33 receptions on 54 targets. He appeared in 11 games. He started 6. Had the one touchdown. Had a success percentage, which is defined a success rate of a successful reception that gains at least 40% of yards on first down, 60% of yards required on second down, and 100% on third or fourth down, and you divide that by the targets, okay? So you had a receiving success rate of 50%. You want to take a guess at how many catches for how many yards Treylon Burks has in 6 games that he has appeared in this season?
6 games this season.
He's appeared in 6 games. At most, he will match his number of appearances from a year ago.
He didn't have a catch Sunday, right?
Did not have a catch Sunday.
Did he
not have a target.
I was going to say.
Was not targeted.
He didn't get many snaps. So with that in mind, I'm going to remove that game out of my head and say 5 again, that he's actually contributed in.
Mm-hmm.
And 20 catches.
For how many yards?
274.
He's got 8.
Wow. For how many yards?
122. Got a success rate, receiving success rate, down from 50% of 33.3.
And what's his best game? Was it Chargers game? Probably
Chargers.
just because of the one deep ball.
His Chargers, he helped them beat the Chargers in overtime. He had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 76 yards. He has not had more than 23 yards in another game. 2 for 23 in Pittsburgh, which is, of course, the game that he got knocked out in. He had 1 catch for 5 yards against the Browns, had a couple of drops in that game. And then New Orleans, 2 for 18. It's really jarring how little he's been available. But again, compounded by how little he's done when he's been available. That is the more troubling part, right? When we talk about like where things went wrong, because we referenced that Teron Davenport article yesterday and how he's quoting Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel, and nobody ever expects to have like a terrible season, I guess, unless like, I don't know, like did the Arizona Cardinals expect to have a terrible season? Because they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, who play tonight, over the weekend. They look a hell of a lot more frisky with Kyler Murray back. No offense to Josh Dobbs, but like they look problematic for some teams. Did the Arizona Cardinals come into this year expecting to be dreadful?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe that's the bar.
I mean, were they not the favorite for the number 1 overall pick?
Did Carolina come into the season expecting to be dreadful?
No, I think Carolina expected progress.
Did Chicago?
No.
Okay. So, again, I'm just saying, there's probably not a lot of teams who go into the season thinking we're going to be awful. And the Titans certainly were not that, right? We're gonna be competitive. We're going to try and bridge this gap. We're going to see if we can do it successfully, and they didn't. So, like, when we talk about the places where it most went wrong, it's Andre Dillard, and it's Treylon Burks. Are those not the 2 biggest kind of things that they had a lot or a fair amount of investment in that they needed to at least do something rather than, I mean, I don't want to say that they've done nothing, but they certainly haven't helped things, have they? That's kind of where Treylon Burks is right now. It's why that bar is so low for him. And you know, it's not like he's costing you a bunch of money, but when you boil down the catches, it's like $175,000 a catch this year.
I mean, think about where this wide receiver core is if the DeAndre Hopkins thing doesn't work out.
Oh my God.
Right?
Why would you do that? Why would you even? It's so true.
It's in a really bad place outside of DeAndre Hopkins.
Think about how much differently we talk about their offseason. If they don't, I mean, listen, they can have been confident in DeAndre Hopkins' release and that they would ultimately sign him, but it wasn't like a done deal.
It was not in their control, right?
It was not in their control.
Until he was released.
It was very much, remember when Rand said, roll the dice and play the board? It very much felt like, all right, roll the dice, hang on to your butts, kids. We're going to see if we can land this guy. And they did. So, you know, It's not,
And he's been good. He has been
good.
DeAndre Hopkins.
He has been good. So like you cannot take anything away from them because they got the deal done. But it was pretty scary for a while there where Colton Dowell and Chris Moore were the biggest additions that were made this offseason. But even, I mean, Lucas, like the lies that training camp told us, I don't want to call Treylon Burks a lie, but it's like Kyle Phillips. I can't convince people that I've seen something when they have not seen it with their own eyes, right? People don't get to go to training camp. Like we're there every day, all right? And it's easier to look good at training camp, right? For obvious reasons. But more than this, right? More than this. And I I don't want the tone to sound like I'm blaming him for getting concussed. That's horrifying. I could not be further away from that. And the fact that he doesn't remember anything from the game makes me feel even better about the way that he's been handled here to kind of slow play him back. And that's something that, not that anybody takes concussions lightly, but definitely some coaches take it more lightly than others. And it's good to see that Vrabel and this coaching staff and Todd Torricelli, the head trainer, that is not something that, there's even a semblance of, hey, you want to try and play through your bell getting rung there? Not what you want. So I don't know what to do with him. All that to say, do I expect Treylon Burks to have a big game in Miami? I don't know. Do I expect him to make a difference? I don't even know if I'm there yet. They're just trying to see if they can get him back into things and get him back into the swing of things. Doesn't that make the Phillips thing make more sense? And just the lack of general involvement for him. If he doesn't remember games and you kind of get him back, you got to get him back up to speed. He hasn't been in meetings.
The Phillips thing?
The Phillips thing, that Phillips was inactive for Treylon Burks and that Treylon Burks did so little in the game.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
And that basically said, yeah, we were paraphrasing here from Mike Vrabel, but they just wanted to get him up to speed. And this is the way that it always works in sports and in any performance-based industry, right? Where do you start to kind of fade from providing reasonable explanations for why things are happening around a player versus what people receive as excuse making? I think that there's a completely reasonable way that they've handled the Treylon Burks thing, but I understand why fans are going to look at it as excuses because the guy doesn't produce. That's what it comes down to. Anyway, 615-737-1045 is the number. Deion Sanders, the hype train, went completely off the tracks. I saw a fascinating story over the weekend about him being Sports Illustrated's Sportsman of the Year.
Well, Deion just got a massive, massive addition to try and get that hype train on the tracks that is going to upset some Tennessee fans.
We have news?
We have news.
That's next. All right, so is this worthy of laser light show type breaking news?
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
The highly anticipated commitment of offensive tackle Jordan Seaton, the 5-star who looked like he was going to go Tennessee, maybe Ohio State. A lot of people were in the dark about where this blue chip offensive tackle out of IMG Academy was going to go.
But enough for you to tell me this morning, hey, just so you're aware, there's a 5-star offensive tackle that may be committing to Tennessee today.
And just when we thought that the Deion hype train was getting off the tracks, here comes Deion Sanders in Colorado out of left field, and Jordan Seaton has committed to Colorado.
This is courtesy of Hayes Fawcett of On3 Sports. The 5-star plus. Are we doing 5-star pluses now? Is that a thing with recruits? Anyway, 5-star plus offensive tackle. Jordan Seaton tells me he is committed to Colorado. The number one offensive tackle in 2024 chose the Buffaloes over Tennessee, Oregon, Florida, and Ohio State. Quote, Boulder, you're getting someone who is going to work and compete. Hashtag the savior. Whoa. The savior for an offensive tackle. You know what? I should not laugh at that because an offensive tackle that was even competent would be regarded as the savior here in Nashville. So let me not poke fun. This is a big coup for Deion because the biggest knock on Deion is, well, this thing can't be sustainable. He's having recruits drop out on him left and right. And now he comes through in a big spot, literally, as we were getting ready to talk about the Deion Sanders hype train being knocked off the tracks, a month and a half into the college football season? And how he finished, Sports Illustrated is not Sports Illustrated anymore. Like, the level of respect and integrity that you associate with that brand that many of you associate with that going back to your childhood, and, like, the level of authors. You don't watch 60 Minutes.
No.
But do you know who John Wertheim is?
Yes.
John Wertheim, formerly of Sports Illustrated, now does work for 60 Minutes. Like, that's the caliber of person that magazine, when it was a magazine, used to kind of provide. We understand that Sports Illustrated is not that anymore. But Sportsman of the Year is still something that makes the rounds, at this time of year. And they still do covers, if not like physically print the covers. They promote the covers on social media. And Deion Sanders was Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. Now, I saw that, and I understood, like, who is a clear-cut person, if you're Sports Illustrated, for Sportsman of the Year in 2023? Sportsman or sportswoman?
Taylor Swift? No.
I mean, listen, she's Times Entertainer of the Year.
Yes. Deion. What one individual was talked about in the most circles in sports than Deion Sanders in
Aaron
the
Rodgers.
in the United States?
Aaron Rodgers. But that's it. Like, Travis Kelce halfway through the season because of Taylor Swift.
Lionel Messi would be up there.
Sure. And that for an American audience, for Sports Illustrated, thinking about, like, their audience, right? You can't, what's another example of that? The Spanish women's soccer team, right? That's not, like, that is, that's, unfortunately, one way or the other, like, an American audience is not going to care about the Spanish women's national team winning the World Cup. So Deion is the Sportsman of the Year because of how compelling he was. Completely captivating. He was the most discussed thing, not named Aaron Rodgers, in football, college or pro. He has all kind of he's already paid for himself. He paid for himself in one win against TCU. Like, that was all it took for Colorado to start to greenlight all kinds of projects, all kinds of stadium and facility upgrades, basically recoup the money that they needed to make to pay Deion's salary, and then continue to mobilize name, image, and likeness and transfer portal opportunities for Deion to be able to kind of make strides in a pretty unique way. I don't know if it's sustainable. I assume his long-term goal is to coach a Power 5 major college football program. And I don't know if that involves an eye towards the pros or not. If you're gonna look at the Power Five, why stop there? Why not think about coaching in the NFL? But I don't know what Deion Sanders plans to do here.
All eyes are already on Deion, but eyebrows will be raised when his son's time ends at Colorado, Shador and Shiloh. Then people will look to him and say, "All right, buddy, what's next?" This was much needed, though. This pickup, Jordan Seaton. Are you kidding me?
Well, one of the biggest knocks on Colorado this year was how much they were getting Shador knocked around back there.
He's going to play immediately, every snap this season if healthy.
Quote, courtesy of On3 scouting and rankings team, polished offensive tackle who is one of the more battle-tested prospects at the position in the 2024 cycle, measured at over 6'5", 295 pounds prior to his senior season. My God. Has a big frame plus length for the position with arm length over 34 inches and verified 10 3/4 inch hands. So dropped considerable weight as a junior after previously weighing over 330 pounds. That's crazy. Technically sound, well-rounded from a skill perspective. All right. Well, Colorado landed a big one.
Tennessee came into this week thinking that they could end the week with their left tackle of the future in Jordan Seaton and the tight end for the upcoming season, Justin Joly, the UConn transfer, who was going to visit Tennessee this weekend. Joly takes to Twitter saying that visit actually is not happening and Seaton commits to Colorado. So a couple of hits there taken for the Vols, who thought that they would have both of those positions shored up pretty well this week.
So with this is the kind of thing that I think they most need to resolve, specifically in football. If we're going to basically do free agency, then let's provide it with a little more structure. Because, full disclosure, I am pro the players having as much movement and flexibility as humanly possible. But I also think that this creates a lot of problems for guys jumping in and out every year. It holds certainly programs hostage, coaching staffs hostage, as far as what needs you can address. And I don't know what, again, perhaps we have Dan Lust on to talk about this, and maybe this is something that's being discussed in front of Congress with Spire Sports and other NIL collectives, major NIL collectives in the country, making trips to the Hill to try and lobby, basically for lack of federal regulation. But doesn't it feel like we need a little bit more? If we're going to do free agency, then let's provide it a little more structure. Like, would people be opposed to 2-year deals? 2-year deals that give the program a little stability, that frankly give the player a little stability. Because how many of these players are going into the transfer portal and kind of looking around like the Will Smith meme at the end of the day? Actually, it's probably the opposite of the Will Smith meme. It's not an empty living room that they're looking around in, but it's a transfer portal full of players that thought they might have somewhere to go, and then at the last second had the rug pulled out from them because a 5-star from UConn just became available.
Now, with that said, Notre Dame transfer Holden Stays, the sophomore tight end who just entered the portal, is going to visit Tennessee this weekend. So Tennessee still with an opportunity there to add a big body. He's from Atlanta, 6'4", 242 pounds, had 15 catches for 176 yards and 4 touchdowns. Obviously, Notre Dame's produced some pretty good tight ends over the last few years. So that would be a huge get for Tennessee if they could get Stays instead of Joly at a UConn. But, yeah, the Seaton commitment out of left field, I did not hear Colorado mentioned once. But I heard them talking about it on Ramon, Kayla, and Will this morning. Nobody had a clue where this kid was going to go. A lot of people did not have any read on this, just guesses, and Tennessee felt good about it. But here comes Deion.
Now, this is interesting, and I want to know how they quantify this. Have we ever talked to anybody has anybody ever had anybody from On3 to talk about how they do their NIL valuations? Because that feels a little like Zillow-ish to me, where Zillow got in trouble for putting prices on people's homes when people are trying to sell homes for a certain value, like it kind of undermined the market a little bit. I don't know how On3 comes up with their NIL valuations, but they have Seaton currently with an NIL valuation of $268,000 for an offensive tackle. It's not bad. But kind of coming back to the structure of this, like Tennessee in the transfer portal, how would you describe Heupel and his staff strategy or level of success? Like, what would you say is the experience for Heupel and the Tennessee program in the portal through now, what is this, 3 seasons?
Supplementing.
Effectively?
Is the word I would use.
But are they doing it effectively? Like, are they getting meaningful contributions from these transfer portal players? Because, like, the Oregon transfer at wide receiver looked like he might have been coming on. Yeah. Injuries kind of derailed the whole thing, right? You thought you had a stud in the transfer portal. I'm not going to knock them because a player that everybody thought was going to be able to make a bigger contribution, Thornton, didn't pan out. So, okay.
When you look at the best rosters in college football, they were built out in recruiting. The bones of the best rosters in college football happened via recruiting. And you can supplement it here and there. Alabama, who has one of the most talented rosters in the country, has obviously utilized the portal. Jermaine Burton has been their lead receiver this season. He's a transfer from Georgia. On the other hand, Georgia, in large part, they brought in pieces. They brought in Dominic Lovett and Ra Thomas. Neither of those guys, I don't think, took anything by the reins with this Georgia offense. Everything still went sort of through Brock Bowers. They spread the ball around. But the bones of the best rosters in college football have to come through recruiting, which I think has been a criticism of Deion's, that he totally flipped that Colorado roster via the portal, and that's why it was such a talking point early on. Yes, Deion and the personality and all of those things, but stunned that he just cobbled this roster together in the offseason, and they were playing as well as they were against TCU and Nebraska, and obviously that petered out, and they regressed to the mean a little bit, lost 6 in a row, missed out on a bowl game, and if you told us before the season that Colorado's season would end with 6 straight losses and finishing with what they finished with, a 4-8 record, right? 4-8, then we would have said, okay, they were a little bit better than we thought they were going to be, but you know.
Do you have a pop-up playing?
Yeah, it was on my phone.
What was it?
It was a highlight of the Notre Dame transfer, Holden Stace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I follow the rules around here. But to answer your question, the bones of the best rosters in college football are built through recruiting, and you supplement it. You supplement it via the portal. And some of those additions can have very large impact. Some can just be depth pieces. I think if Tennessee nabs Holden Stace out of Notre Dame, then that's a guy that will get a ton of snaps and could really contribute this season on the offense.
So, like Lucas mentioned, they were 4-8 this season after what was just basically taking the sport by storm.
Yes, 100%.
There's no other way to put it. It was a phenomenon. And I know, Lucas, you made a face at me like you smelled something bad when Stephen A. Smith got out there with the perfect take and said if Deion was the coach of Florida State, they would never have gotten left out.
It's just such a out there. Yeah, sure. I don't know.
It's perfect.
We could sit there and mull over hypotheticals like that all day.
I'm just jealous. I'm jealous that the bet. It's why he's the best, because he got there first. It's perfect. Anyway, the art of the take. This for Colorado, 28.2 points per game, basically middle of the pack for college football this year. The offensive line is
dreadful.
The offensive. What was the worst unit for Colorado? The offensive line or the secondary? Because both were nightmarish beyond leaning so much on Travis Hunter to try and play both ways. They were so paper thin there.
Yeah, well, Travis Hunter made enough plays early in the season to lift that secondary, which was atrocious.
Sure.
But Hunter is the biggest star of that team. Hunter was one of the biggest stars in all of college football in the first 4 weeks of the season. But what Colorado did down the stretch is what we expected Colorado to do this season. A dreadful football team.
Overachieved by leaps 100%. And bounds.
Yep.
But once we got bored with it, basically, once they started losing games, once they started that losing streak, obviously, or continued on that losing streak, people just lost interest.
And they've been suffering some decommitments lately, and that has raised questions about Deion. Like, okay, you still have to recruit. And I don't know that Deion is necessarily grinding on the recruiting trail like a Kirby or a Nick Saban.
I don't think he has to. I think the fact that every network in America wants to put him on television should absolve him.
That'll help.
If you want to be efficient with putting Deion in living rooms, put him in every living room in America.
And that has helped Deion make big splashes in recruiting.
Yes.
But is it enough to keep things consistent, consistently grind out good classes? Like, if you can have a mediocre class with 1 or 2 5 stars, great. But I don't know that that's going to build a championship caliber roster at Colorado.
Well, doesn't it come down to, and you could speak to this better than I can, does it not come down to more so than the head coach? Like, the head coach is the closer, but it's about the assistants. It's about the assistants, it's about the coordinators, it's about the position coaches who are able to go. Like, Rodney Garner is on the list of assets that the University of Tennessee as a program has. How high would you rank Rodney Garner and his ability, the defensive line coach, to recruit?
Extremely high.
Okay, so like Deion, just because it's different doesn't mean that it can't be done, whether they're successful with it or not, and whether that's at Colorado or whatever his next stop is, where there's more resources that he doesn't have to. He's shouldering the revenue generating for an entire athletic department.
Here's the thing. Colorado, with the Jordan Seaton commitment, is where do you think they rank now, the 247 Sports Composite?
Oh, I bet they're top 30?
53rd.
Oof.
53rd.
God.
So the bones of their roster in regards to recruiting is not good. They've had like 6 decommitments over the last 2 weeks. So that's the question with Deion. Like, yes, Deion is out there. Deion is enough star power to get those big splashes like a Jordan Seaton. But is it enough? That doesn't mean it's enough to build a championship caliber roster as
at Colorado.
Who's now in the Big 12.
At Colorado. But if it's just a test case for, hey, I can do this, let me bring this to some place with real money, real pull, real recruiting advantages, that's not just me, and maybe DeMar DeRozan shows up at one of your games and Quavo's on the sideline and stuff like that. Like, this is a different level of kind of test study at a major, I mean, I'm not going to say Colorado's a major Power 5 program, but on the Power 5 level, and whether it can succeed in like at the elite level of college football. I think it's fascinating. I hope he does it. I feel like a lot of people root against Deion Sanders, and maybe I get why, because he's unapologetically Deion.
Well, did you see the quote he gave to People?
People Magazine?
Yeah.
I haven't read People Magazine in my life, I'll be honest with you.
The quote that he gave to People Magazine in an exclusive interview was, quote, "You always wish that you had a little more privacy. But the same thing that makes you shine will show your blemishes. So you've got to take the good with the bad. You can't just want everyone there when the hype machine is rolling. You have to understand there's another side to this." So Deion saying, I wish we would have had a little more privacy last season. Rightfully has people saying, come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
You got one or the other. Come on.
You cannot be the best self-promoter in all of sports and also a little more privacy. Not so much with the cameras everywhere that I've brought in. 615-737-1045 is the number. R. Johnson on the F&M Bank chat, YouTube specifically. When has a last place coach ever been this celebrated? Well, there's never, like, who is even close to what Deion is trying to do here.
Yeah, it's incredibly unique. That's why it's being talked about as much as it is. My question is, when does the shine start to wear off? Right? If Deion is not able to build out a roster with enough depth to compete on a week-to-week basis.
If they're not bowl eligible next year.
And the stars are going to be there.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders is going to be playing quarterback. Jordan Seaton's going to be his left tackle. Travis Hunter's going to be going both ways. The transfer running back, the freshman from Notre Dame that starred early in the year, is going to be back. But if they don't have enough depth, which right now through recruiting, they've got some big splash guys, but if they can't be bowl eligible next season, I think we start to see some of the shine wear off. Where, we could talk about how great everything is with Deion and how cool it is, and it's big popular buzz in college football, but it's not translating to wins consistently.
Not yet. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Speaking of college football, let's check in on the Heisman Watch, I guess, coming up next. Welcome back. Do a Heisman update here in just a second. We're getting closer and closer. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Let's go to Bill in Lebanon up first. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Buck.
How are you, bud?
Hey, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great.
Deion, there is no telling what he promised that kid to get him to come to Colorado. And that's the environment that you're in these days. You're going to hit on some, you're going to miss on some. But that's what made Fulmer, and that's obviously Rodney Garner. Fulmer was the closer. He usually got those guys. He wasn't in on these guys, and at the last second, they would come to Tennessee. And that's what Heupel, they got to get these guys, the big boys, the D-line, O-line, they've got to get them coming in consistently to compete with, Alabama and Georgia. But, I don't know. I just think that's what you're in right now. There's no telling what he probably gave him, ownership of his sunglasses or something, whatever.
I mean, if he can, right? Like, that's the game, right, Bill? Like, it's,
Exactly.
I know that's, and I appreciate the call. Thank you for it. I mean, if that is within Deion's power to promise and, like, he delivers on it, hell yes. Hell yes. And I understand the frustration because Tennessee has been up against it. I don't want to spend a bunch of time here talking about the stuff we just talked about, but Tennessee has been up against it for a long time. For a long time. And you feel like you're on the verge of a breakthrough a little bit, right? Isn't that what this next season feels like? You're on the verge of a breakthrough, a legitimate 5-star, potentially NFL caliber quarterback. I don't want to hype him up too much. I feel like it's already being done around Nico, but you've got a legitimate shot in the SEC, in the East specifically.
No, that doesn't matter anymore with divisions going away.
Oh, well, that's right.
But yes.
But it feels like they're on the verge of a legitimate breakthrough. Not this false bill of goods that you feel like you've been sold from every 2 to 3 years in some form or fashion. And so that now this new variable enters the game and just completely upends things. Disruption is good for marketplaces, regardless of what they are, to an extent. But there's not going to be, it's not like there's not going to have hurt feelings associated with some of this. And you just have to figure out, all right, are you going to be able to compete? Is Josh Heupel going to be able to compete with Deion Sanders? Deion Sanders, you're doing it one way if you're Kirby, you're doing it another if you're Deion. Which one's going to be the more attainable path? You have to figure out the best balance of both.
Yeah, I'm still very skeptical. I'm very skeptical about Deion when it comes to recruiting. He's going to get the big splash guys, but when he's doing all-state commercials and not spending times in kids' homes, I think there are a lot more recruits that you need that care more about their path to the NFL, about their development, about what their parents being involved in the recruitment than there are the splashy guys that want to go play for Prime. So can Deion get those kids?
Heisman, 3 quarterbacks officially invited to New York, all 3 transformative for their programs, it feels like. And what you have at this point with the Heisman Trophy race, it feels like it is now Jaden Daniels to lose. Does it not?
It should be. Jaden Daniels should win the Heisman.
So it's Jaden Daniels, it's Michael Penix, it's Bo Nix.
And Marvin Harrison Jr.
Which, by the way, is a credit to Marvin Harrison Jr., who didn't have his best season. Like, we've talked about this. Marvin Harrison Jr. was an above-average player, obviously. But with whether you want to blame it on the restraints that he had because of the quarterback position.
That had a lot to do with it.
And that's a fair evaluation. By the way, McCord, right? McCord is in the transfer
Kyle McCord,
portal.
who is in the portal.
He's in the portal.
So Ohio State will have to go to the portal themselves to address it.
So 3 quarterbacks and the receiver. Fair to say that Jaden Daniels should and will run away with it, even though he's on a 3-loss football team.
Yeah. I don't hate Marvin Harrison Jr. being a finalist. I also don't think he has any business winning the Heisman Trophy this year. Jaden Daniels should win the Heisman Trophy. He did things that no quarterback in the history of college football has done. To me, the Penix beating Bo Nix head-to-head maybe would put Penix ahead of Bo going 2-0 against him, but Michael Penix's numbers fell a little bit over the last few weeks. That doesn't mean Washington was any worse. If anything, Washington's defense really stepped up the last few weeks. Rome Odunze is one of the best receivers in the country. But Jaden Daniels, the dude had like 1,100 rush yards. There are so many running backs that could not achieve that this year in college football. He had a ridiculous, ridiculous season. LSU's defense was atrocious, so they're 9-3, and they're going to the ReliaQuest Bowl. But I absolutely think that Jaden Daniels should win the Heisman, and I absolutely think that LSU fans should rue the missed opportunity that will be having probably the best player in college football this year on their team at quarterback and not being able to do anything better than 9-3 with it.
So this is courtesy of Dennis Dodd at CBS Sports. A campaign that rivaled the great Joe Burrow included 50 total touchdowns, 40 passing, which was tied with Bo Nix for the national lead. Last month, he became the first player in history to throw for 12,000 yards and rush for 3,000 yards in the same season. His 1,134 yards rushing this season were more than 9 teams. More than 9 teams. 5 times this year he threw for at least 4 touchdowns in a game after transferring from Arizona State. The dude is electric. He is the single most fun and entertaining football player in college football this year. Now, I think the argument is, well, who did they do it against? Like, Heisman moments are kind of an overrated type of discussion. Like, what is Bo Nix's Heisman moment necessarily? And Bo Nix, by the way, not going to win the Heisman, so maybe that's a deal breaker there. But like, what is Jaden Daniels' Heisman moment? Because he's put up a ton of numbers, but they haven't necessarily been against quality opponents.
Well, we've talked about the Florida game, the first player in college football history to throw for 350 or more and run for 200 or more. He did that against the Gators, had 5 total touchdowns in that game. He went tit for tat with Alabama, scored with Alabama until Alabama was just able to get more stops than LSU was in a 42-28 loss. But he was 15-24 for 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He ran the ball 11 times for 163 yards and a score in that game. So he did it against Alabama. He put up huge numbers against Missouri, a top 10 team. He put up huge numbers against Ole Miss in a loss because LSU's defense couldn't win on a night where their offense scored 49 points. So the resume is all there. It's all there for Jaden Daniels. He absolutely should win the Heisman. Huge numbers against Florida State at the start of the year that I know that they were kind of shut down in the second half of that game. But no question in my mind. It is very clear-cut, which is funny because midway point of the season, it felt like a total toss-up. And it felt like it was either Penix or Nix. But what Jaden Daniels did in the last, really since the Alabama game and onward, yeah, it should be Jaden Daniels.
Greg Cosell broke down the Titans' defense, what he's noticing about where they're playing well and where they're falling off. We're going to get into that coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11 a.m. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans were back on the practice field Wednesday in preparation for the upcoming Monday night matchup in Miami. Christian Fulton, Jeffrey Simmons, Joe Jones, Daniel Brunskill, and Josh Wiley did not practice on Wednesday. Treylon Burks was back on the practice field. Speaking of the Dolphins, Miami agreed to a 3-year extension with right tackle Austin Jackson worth $36 million, $20.7 million of it in guaranteed money. News in the world of college football recruiting. 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton out of IMG Academy, a Tennessee target, has announced his commitment to Deion Sanders and Colorado. College basketball, the Belmont Bruins held off a Lipscomb comeback bid to win the Battle of the Boulevard on Wednesday, 72-71. Belmont improves to 7-3. Lipscomb falls to 6-5. And Vanderbilt fell at home to San Francisco on Wednesday, 73-60. The Commodores drop to 4-6. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome in. Welcome back. Hour number 2. Happy to have you, whether you're just now tuning in for the day. If you've been hanging around so far this morning. 615-737-1045. That's the number if you want to jump in. What happened to you during your update?
I hiccuped.
Did you? Oh, that was a hiccup.
I hiccuped right at the very end. Out of nowhere.
I thought you were like, I thought it was like a me situation where you got a little phlegmy there.
Nope.
And just were like gasping for air.
It was a hiccup. A hiccup on me.
The rare hiccup in the middle of Lucas Panzica's update. Again, the level of broadcast professionalism that you can hear from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. F&M Bank Chat, you can interact there as well. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, always professional. Titans defense. How would you describe the relationship the Titans fans have with their defensive unit right now? From the coaches, coaching staff, to the players, to the general unit as a whole. How would you describe the relationship the Titans fans have with the defense?
Frustrating because they have to be perfect, and they're not.
They're not. They're not perfect. And a team with this many offensive deficiencies absolutely needs to be perfect, and this one is not. It's got some flaws. Now, they're not the kind of flaws that should kill you, the way that it seems in critical moments this team gets killed by either penalty or an explosive play at, like, the worst possible time. The worst possible time. Now, maybe there's no good time for a 55-yard completion. It feels like the second to last play of the game in overtime is a pretty bad time for an explosive play to happen when you've largely managed the game. Now, a couple of notes on the Titans defense. This Colts game did drop them out of the top 10 as a scoring defense. Indianapolis in total, including what was the punt return touchdown. So maybe you don't want to count that.
10 points that were special teams.
10 points that were special teams of points on defense. Titans defense also scoring 2 points on their own, with Amani Hooker having a great day in general, just by reference of Pro Football Focus statistics and grades and things like that. But Titans defense also holding on for the most part, even if it felt like they were the death blow, right? The illegal contact penalty that Sean Murphy-Bunting didn't agree with, didn't matter. Didn't sound necessarily like Mike Vrabel agreed with it either. We talked about it. Looked like he got hooked a little bit by the receiver, and whatever, penalty flag thrown. Good on the receiver for getting a penalty there. And then Trey Avery in the game. Cosell described it basically not being on Trey Avery. Like, the play design was just really good, and it's not like Trey Avery gave up a touchdown. They just had the play to beat the Titans in that particular defense. And maybe those things aren't different to you, but I broke down that play specifically with Greg on the podcast this week. So I asked Greg, before we go through some numbers on the Titans defense, I asked Greg what he thought of the Titans defense. And actually, he kind of brought it up unprompted. This was Cosell.
And defensively, look, they we saw what happened on special teams. I thought defensively there were a few individual plays, obviously, that were problematic, obviously. But I thought overall they played pretty well on defense. But yeah, I mean, obviously they gave up the Pierce 36-yard TD to end the first possession and the Pierce 55-yarder, which set up the winning touchdown. Those were individual plays. But I'd say overall, I thought this defense played pretty well in this game. They did not give up much in the run game at all.
So that is Greg Cosell. And obviously Jeff Simmons impacts this, right? Jeff Simmons getting injured in the third quarter, trying to come back in, doesn't finish the game, stands to miss a couple of weeks with a knee injury. Jeff has so many different roles that he has to play, and he's been utterly dominant up until the injury knocked him out. I don't know if Kyle Pecco and Danico Autry and Tier Tart and TK McClendon, I guess. Jaleel Johnson, maybe. Play some snaps. I don't know if they're going to be able to make up 75% of Jeff Simmons, but they're going to have to try against Miami. And what we see from the Titans defense so far, what do you think they're giving up on third down right now? Lucas, what do you think the Titans' third down conversion percentage as a defense is?
I'm going to say 41%.
They are allowing this year a conversion percentage of 38.18 on third downs. That ranks them 15th in the league. They are sandwiched between Indianapolis at 38.07 and New England, who's playing good defense. It's just everything else that's wretched.
Middle of the pack is where the Titans find themselves in a lot of defensive categories.
Basically, my question is, are the frustrations by Titans fans with the defense earned?
Yes and no, in my mind.
Okay. So where are they earned?
They're earned because you went into the season thinking this defense had a chance to be special, right?
You did.
You didn't.
I think I've been pretty clear about that consistently.
I thought this defense had a chance to take a big step forward with Landry back and Arden Key coming in with more of a full-time role. Thought the defensive line standard was just going to be upheld, and liked the moves they made in the defensive backfield with the understanding that we always have of when healthy, this defense had a chance to be upper tier in the NFL. And it has been. It's been middle of the pack. Good enough to win in a lot of cases.
Good enough to win.
But how many times have we come in on Monday after a 23-16 loss and said, defense let them down, right? On a day where the offense maybe scored one offensive touchdown.
Where 17 points per game has been the standard. I mean, come on. You're allowing 20 points per game, which by any stretch of the imagination in the NFL should win you games, except you're averaging 17 points per game on offense. Like that is their death sentence is they have to play perfectly. They have to be elite, and they are not.
There are a lot of contenders that are playing very similar levels of defense as the Titans right now.
So, again, the teams that they're around in third down, so where would you say, who do you think is the best third down defense in football this year?
Ooh.
The answer should be obvious.
San Francisco?
No. San Francisco is pretty far down the list.
Really?
As a matter of fact, San Francisco is allowing 41.18. They are 22nd.
Is it Baltimore?
Baltimore is 7th, 36.16.
It's the best scoring defense, I believe, in the NFL.
Well, I don't have that number.
Oh, the Browns, right?
The Browns. 27.63% of third downs is what they're allowing right now. Atlanta, ironically enough, is second. The Chargers third, which makes that even more maddening. I'm saying the top five is pretty interesting. Cleveland, Atlanta, L.A., the Chargers, Denver, and the Giants. Carolina is 9 spots higher on third down conversions allowed than is Tennessee. Think about that.
Yeah, everybody's getting everything on first and second down against the
Panthers. Teams don't have to play third down against the Panthers. Fair enough. So Miami, for what it's worth, 36.54. They are the 9th best third down defense in football. So there's a couple of things that you're fighting against, but people are super dramatic about the defense. They're super dramatic about the defense. They're super dramatic about Shane Bowen. And while I understand that everything, we've talked about this, and I hate to repeat the same damn thing. I feel like I've been on repeat for 13 weeks of football or 12 weeks of football, not counting the bye. When you cannot score points, everything feels so much worse. You feel worse about Shane Bowen's job. You feel worse about Christian Fulton's just general existence. You feel worse about every penalty, everything that even chips away at just the small margin for error that you as a defense have. You're infuriated by it. And also, probably because you came in with higher expectations. A lot of people, Lucas, I'm a little dismissive of, I'm a little more dismissive than I should be about how I felt about the Titans front to start the year. I think you speak for way more people when they looked at the Titans defense, the moves that they made with the existing players that they had, and said, this is enough to be a top 10 defense in whatever metric you want to look at, whether that's scoring, whether that's pass rush, win rate, against the run, whatever that is. This should be a football team that's good enough. And they weren't. They're not good enough at linebacker. They're not good enough off the edge right now, whether that's Arden or Harold. There have been moments where they look, as what they're advertised, as what they're basically paid to do. But they have been fewer. I don't want to say few and far between. They have been fewer than we imagined.
Puka says the Titans defense allowed some awful offenses to have some of their best performances. So
I don't dispute that.
What comes to mind? What's the game that pops into your head when you read that comment?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Who couldn't run the ball for anything.
You let Matt Canada have his job for a week longer.
Yeah.
Because they were averaging I think it was something like 32 yards per first quarter. The Pittsburgh Steelers
it was a rushing attack averaging 78 yards per game.
I mean, all the numbers around everything but their fourth quarter numbers.
Yeah, and they racked up 166 rush yards against you.
That, and they had one of their only opening possession touchdown drives of the year against you. So that is a particularly disappointing moment. I don't want to take Cleveland away, but again, the offense was just nightmarish to where there were some opportunities to hold Deshaun Watson down longer than they did. There was a turnover that was critical. There were some third down conversions that they got off the field for, and then it just snowballed on them late because they could get nothing done as an offensive unit. Coming up next, we are going to get into how you, as Titans fans, are viewing the rest of the season. 5-7 would have been a lot different conversation. You would have been in the graphic. You would have been still in play for the AFC South. 4-8 is a lot different, and Miami looks a bit daunting. But I'm curious to know how Titans fans are kind of basically a vibe check right now. Heading into Monday Night Football, 615-737-1045. We'll talk about it coming up next. Welcome back to the show. Happy to have you guys here till 1 o'clock. 615-737-1045. You can jump in. So, how are you? Are you well? As a Titans fan, are you okay? I feel like I haven't checked in on you the person, in a little while. I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking about your football team, but I feel like I haven't checked in with you. We come in here on Mondays lately, basically for a calendar year now, bud. There's been a lot of bad Mondays. We've been walking in here. And I had somebody text me the other day, our buddy Jeremy Forsyth, like complimenting us on how we have kept the show entertaining, even though the football team stinks. And I said, well, basically the way that we do this, it doesn't really vary much from when they win or when they lose, which I think has allowed us, at least us, to maintain a level of consistency. But the losing wears on everybody. It's been a year. So I feel like I haven't checked in on Titans fans well enough, especially at 4-8. 4-8 feels like a pretty fragile place. There's been a lot of stuff going around. You got a lot of different information and misinformation and theories and infighting going on in your football team right now, all kinds of different stuff. People are pointing fingers and fighting for jobs. People in the Titans organization are in survival mode. That does not lend itself to a productive working environment. Not a lot of reasons for the good vibes, but Monday Night Football, Will Levis excited, spoke about it yesterday. And the idea of what matters most at this particular time. We came in here prior to Craig Aukerman being fired, Lucas, talking about the idea of, they lost. But I didn't feel awful about it. I didn't feel awful about it.
About the performance.
About the performance.
I think that was the most crushing loss of the season so far.
Yes.
Because that felt like a breaking point of, if anybody's still hanging around with playoff hopes, that was the game.
Yeah.
Where you beat a divisional opponent, claw back to 5-7.
Crowd was great.
Crowd was into it.
Looked like you might stay undefeated at home, especially against the Colts. You had dropped 2 division games. 0-3 is kind of a death sentence, even though it isn't officially a death sentence. But you get swept by the Colts at home in a game that I'm not going to say that they should have won it, because they had a bunch of reasons why they didn't win it. But a game that felt very attainable, that you fought your ass off for.
Yeah.
That they fought for it, right? Like that's the thing that I came away with more than anything else was, all right, the questions about what is resonating from Mike Vrabel in the locker room are unfounded. This team just went out there and tried to kick somebody's ass.
Yeah, they've quit on Vrabel voices haven't been around.
Sunday disproves that, I think, pretty vigorously. Now, that is the loser's lament. Like, let me say that on the front end. We're not doing the participation trophy stuff. We're not doing moral victories. I'm just saying, on the scale of things that are left to be evaluated, the head coach being one of them, has the football team quit on Mike Vrabel? Sunday is evidence very much to the contrary of that.
Now, where are you with Titans fans saying they want to lose out? Like, if a Titan fan came up to you out on the street and said, Buck, if we do any better than 4-13 this year, I'm going to be pissed. How do you take that now? Now that we're 12 games in, whereas a few weeks ago somebody's calling in saying Buck and Lucas would rather go 8-9 than, what'd he say, 3-14 or whatever.
Be careful.
I'm just doing the math in my head. Damn 17 games.
You just got so scared.
and we, I think, rightfully jumped all over that guy. Said, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? 8-9, you're in play for a wild card spot. Like, what are we doing here? It's either Super Bowl or high draft pick.
That was
like,
also a month and a half ago. That was a month and a half ago. That's why I got so pissed.
So if we get that phone call today and say, I want to go 4-13, not 7-10, how do you take that now?
I'm not going to jump you, but I'm still going to be like, I don't like it. Like, I would, because I am going to Miami and because I'm going to Houston and because I'm going to be at all these games, You know, I would rather cover. Well, here's what I'll say. I would rather cover compelling games. It's tough for anything to be compelling as a 4-win football team, all right? With not a lot of sign of hope. So, you know, just for the sake of variance, something different, a win would be nice. As somebody with no rooting interest other than what's going to do the best for the show, oh my God, please don't leave us. It's only December the 7th. We still have 5 more weeks to talk about this football team. That is largely my fear. Please don't leave yet. Don't turn on the Christmas music yet. I swear to God, we'll find something interesting to talk about. Is kind of my position. But I'm not going to jump a Titans fan the way that I did a month and a half ago, who basically chastised us for not being interested in the idea of a football team in September losing out. Like, it's such a, I get it. And you're right. You should feel that way. Because I don't feel that way is purely selfish. My feelings do not matter in this. My feelings are not about the future of your organization. My feelings are about what's going to put on the best radio show after Miami. God help us. I don't know what that's going to look like. Perhaps it'll be so bad that it's funny. We'll try and figure it out from there. But my level of engagement right now is what is the most compelling of what remains. And there's not a lot.
Tighten Up Tony on the F&M Bank chat says, one more win is fine. Beat Houston in the throwback game. He will allow one more win. 5-12, nothing more.
I like that.
Nothing less.
I like that. Well, yeah, because you can't lose. Okay, that's the only must-win game on the schedule, right? That's what it is. You cannot have spent the entire offseason trolling the city of Houston, the Texans as an organization, the population that remains both in Houston and around the NFL that thinks that you don't deserve to wear those jerseys. You can't get your ass kicked in the Oilers uniforms. Like, that can't happen. That can't happen. It's the only must-win game left on the schedule. You can't lose to the Texans in the Oilers uniforms. Otherwise, all is lost.
If you want the Titans to lose out, though, which I'm with you, I'm not going to jump all over fans for saying they want a better draft pick. You're 4-8.
Yep.
Nothing's happening with this season.
I get it.
It's okay. But that's how you want it to go, right? On Sunday.
Oh, yeah. No, you want it. Okay, if you're...
You don't want them to just lay down. Like Sunday's performance, it's very sad to say. They tried hard, but they lost. But if you want them to lose out, you at least want them to be competitive while doing it. You at least want to see something from your rookie quarterback while doing it.
I just imagine Bird is just back there cheesing. He's sitting there with a team that's competing for the number 1 overall seed in the Baltimore Ravens. His biggest complaint right now is I don't even know what. Like, I don't even know what a Ravens fan would have to complain about. He's just back there cackling to himself in a corner, probably smoking a cigarette inside.
Will on the F&M Bank chat says, I want Levis to gain confidence and for this team to taste more wins.
You can't. That is a who said that in the chat?
Will Anderson in the F&M Bank chat.
Will Anderson. Okay, I like that from Will because the idea. So tasting a win.
Does that mean just getting a whiff of one and a taste, but not actually getting the whole meal?
Small plates.
I don't know what Will means.
Small plates. Tapas. We're doing tapas. We're doing a cheese
Will
board.
wants tapas.
A little bit of honey, right? Little bit of honey with your prosciutto.
Ricky says, I am not and will not cheer for my team to lose. I don't care. Olivia says, I want them to lose out, but make it competitive.
Yeah. Like, please try.
How does that work? How do you toe that line? That you're all in until the fourth quarter, and then Nick Folks lining up for a 52-yard game-winning field goal in Miami. You're like, push it left. Like, how does that work?
No, you idiot, lose. You're praying to God that Ryan Tannehill has the laces off just a hair, even though I think that the new punter is going to hold.
Ty Zentner. Vrabel confirmed yesterday he can hold.
Oh, God. Jeremy McInturf on the F&M Bank chat says, it's like a wine tasting. You don't actually consume the wine. You just want to sniff it. You want to sniff to win, not actually. This whole metaphor has gotten completely off the rails. I hate it for you guys. I hate it for them because they're miserable. Obviously, who isn't at 4-8? But I completely understand the position of people who would rather see them get the best possible draft pick at this point or set themselves up for the best possible draft picks so that as they try and pursue better players, it comes down to they don't have a ton of draft. Like, they're not overflowing with draft capital. They're not Arizona. If you want to look at how a team is preparing themselves for this kind of competitive rebuild type of stuff, I think Monty Ossenfort, the former Titans assistant, he wasn't an assistant general manager. I can't remember Monty's title off the top of my head. Third in command, basically, under Robinson, under Cowden, right? Monty got a job as the Arizona Cardinals general manager, and he's killing it. He's killing it. He's made moves to put them in position to have as many different swings at young, viable players as humanly possible to jumpstart this thing in a way in Arizona that it desperately needs it. Titans weren't flush with draft capital, weren't flush with picks on top of cash. They will be next year, but it's so much more important for them to get the draft right than it is the free agency stuff. The value is so critical as you already deal with a quarterback who, if you're going to try and figure it out with around Will Levis, Levis is at the advantage here. It's to his benefit to get paid earlier with that second-round contract without the fifth-year option for them to kind of keep him at cost-controlled prices, even though, it's probably going to be $25 million, $30 million on the fifth-year option for the quarterbacks. Anyway. 615-737-1045 is the number. Chris is in Nashville. What's happening?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Appreciate you having me. I think that, you want to have the highest draft pick possible, but at this point, this is a team that's won 4 games. So the value is there with the pick. And I think that, when it comes to exactly. We have our value there with our pick. I think Rand's going to do a good job either picking us an immediate playmaker and somebody who's going to be able to come in and make an impact, or he's going to turn that into more draft picks and just get even more value out of it. So I think when it comes to, wanting a high draft pick, we're going to have one, right? So wanting to go in and lose every game and not see, us build any momentum towards the new season, I think that's a huge mistake. We want to get excited about what we have going to the next year and getting, people that can make an impact immediately, plus winning games, most importantly, is the best way to do that. So, thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call. The idea of, we made jokes about tasting a win, but that's the thing that kind of hey, lose out, but fight. That's the thing that kind of scenario ignores. I don't want Will Levis discouraged. He's a very, very – I almost got upset at John Glennon for asking that question yesterday about getting too emotional in jumping Hopkins a little bit on the sideline, because I don't want that tamped down for any reason, whether that's because they can't win with this football team or because that's the way that he feels like he needs to lead. And we'll get to that later on. I don't want Jalen Duncan or Peter Skoronski or Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears is going to be on the radio show with us tomorrow at 12:15. Tajay Spears is such a positive and I don't want to say short-term memory type of individual, because that connotes something more serious with a running back. But he's continually positive about his situation. It would be very easy for all of them to not be. It would be easier for them to be Monty Rice or Jaleel Johnson, to be frustrated, to voice that opinion. They could do a lot of damage to there's a lot of young players with a lot of focus on them and a lot of microphones in their faces. It would be easy to kind of not toe that line or express your displeasure if you felt like you wanted to.
Well, that's why Sunday's the best example of this, right? Because what happened Sunday? Tajay Spears has to come in. Derrick Henry leaves evaluated for a concussion early fourth quarter. Spears steps up. Spears has a career day, 75 rush yards, makes plays in the passing game. Will Levis was going to battle on Sunday. We can talk about, he said it's his worst performance as a Titan, but he's turning the ball over and then punching it out and getting it back on the same play, right? He wanted a fight. Getting helicopter tackled and flexing. And so you see that from your rookie quarterback. Your rookie left tackle was emotional on the sideline after the game because you lost. Right?
Oh, you went and saw that?
And these are all rookies that we're talking about. So if you want them to lose out, that's how you want it to play out. You want to see the future of the franchise on the field, laying it on the line, and having an investment in this football team.
But I think that's exactly why you shouldn't want them to lose out, Lucas.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It is an impossible line to toe. So how do you do that? How do you want them to lose out and also want those things at the same time? Because it's really hard to have both.
They're
right?
going to lose games. Like, you go into the assumption they're going to lose games, whether it's Miami. I mean, weird stuff happens in football all the time. The Cardinals beating the Steelers is one of the most perplexing results of the year, right? There's stuff like that all over the NFL. I don't know. I sincerely doubt that Miami, Tennessee is one of them, but we'll see. Whether it's Miami on Monday Night Football, whether it's Houston at home, I think the following weekend on the 17th, and their last road trip of the year at Houston, whatever game, Seattle on Christmas Eve, whatever game they lose or they win, you don't want them to lose out. Losing out should not be on the table here, even if it yields the best possible draft pick, because I swear to God that sets in like a bad smell.
So you're saying, don't worry, they're going to lose games.
They're going to lose games.
Don't fret.
Please don't panic. Your football team is awful. They're going to lose football games. I promise you.
So they
can't lose them all.
They currently hold the number 8 pick in the draft. They're 4-8. The Giants currently hold the number 7 pick. They are 4-8 as well. A lot of 4-8 teams. Chicago, both New York teams, and the Titans are all 4-8.
That's just what we need is a damn logjam. 4-win football team. The sport is gross.
Oh, and the Commanders have 4 wins.
Ugh.
So that's 5 teams in the NFL with 4 wins.
Disgusting.
The Saints have the number 9 pick. They're 5, there's 4 teams that are 5-7. It goes Saints, Bucks, Raiders, Chargers. So there's a logjam there. Is the difference between the number 8 pick and the number 10 pick substantial enough for you to want them to lay down and lose out for the rest of the year? Because I think the answer is no.
Is it Brock Bowers or a guard that plays tackle or a tackle that plays guard? People are very sensitive. You can't ask them these kind of questions. Nobody's going to give you a rational response. Lucas, I'm at the point where I'm comforting them by saying you're going to lose games. Don't worry. It's okay.
Hey, calm down.
I feel like I'm burping them like a baby.
Yeah.
Like
you're going to lose.
Gonna be okay, little guy.
You're not going to win out. Don't you worry. Just don't you want to grab 1 or 2 along the way and have something tangible going into the offseason produced by the rookies?
We also can't speak rationally on this because you and I are just going to waste away talking about a 4-win football team for 5 more weeks. We're concerned for our own well-being. All of this is selfish. All of it. Titan Town in Gallatin is next.
Hi, guys. This is why I think this is the stupidest idea of losing out. And I hope you can hear me. I'm in a dump truck. Sorry, but
you're good.
The idea of losing out is so stupid. For one, because real fans like myself that watch it on TV or go to the game, I don't want to see that crap of them losing on purpose just to get a pick that history shows we're not good at making. So who's to say the pick, whether it's the second pick or the 22nd pick, if you draft a good player, there's good players all up and down the draft. It doesn't have to be an early pick. You can pick a good pick late. So the thing that just because we got an early pick doesn't mean we're going to get a good player with that pick. History shows it.
I 100% agree. To bank on the draft as exact science is just the most. I mean, look at John's drafts. Look at Robinson's last 3 drafts. There is no way after 2019 where you hit on every damn pick. Was there a miss in that group of 6? So who is it? Jeff, round 1. AJ, round 2.
Nate Davis,
round 3. David Long.
Hooker was in there.
Hooker is 4. I think Long is 6th. I don't think they had a 5th round pick that
Long
year.
was 6. Yeah.
Is there a player I'm forgetting in there? They might have only had the 5 picks. Either way, just based on those players that I named alone, that's a home run. You don't ever win by that percentage. And my God, did they pay for it over the last three drafts? Because we talked about this the other day. There's like 23 players.
Oh, Evans. No, Evans was 20. I'm sorry.
19.
Yeah, we're talking about 19. Evans was part of a terrible draft. DeAndre Walker. DeAndre Walker's the only one that didn't.
He was a 5th round pick.
Yes, out of Georgia. pass
right.
rusher. Just nothing happened.
Maybe
there.
they didn't have a 7th that year.
I don't think they had a 7th.
And David Long was the 6th-round pick.
So if you don't want them to sip the wine of winning, you at least want them to swirl it around in the glass and
spit it back up.
Take a deep breath of it. A good whiff.
Was Sunday against the Colts the spit up? Was the 55-yard completion?
Yeah, they drank the wine on Sunday and then spat it up with the blocked punt.
At least we could laugh. Coming up next, speaking of things that are funny, laugh out loud funny as a matter of fact. Should Florida State boycott the Orange Bowl? We'll talk about it next. So there's lawsuits over the College Football Playoff Committee and their alleged snub of Florida State. Now, there may even be a boycott, potentially. Or at least the boycott of a press conference. I don't know if it's going to actually reach the level of boycotting the Orange Bowl, which Florida State is scheduled to play against the Georgia Bulldogs, who, of course, were also left out of the College Football Playoff as the 6th best team in the country, which is laughable. But we got a report today that they are canceling the Orange Bowl press conference, which typically both coaches for these bowl games are in attendance for. They field questions from an assembled group of mixed media, national and local, and they have some fun with it, right? There's a big bowl of oranges between them. Maybe you eat one, maybe you don't. Who's to say? There will be no oranges at the press conference. There will be no coaches at the press conference because apparently it's not happening. When have you ever seen that happen?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many bowl games.
Yeah, but not with Georgia, two-time defending national champion. I'm talking about on the scale of coaches that matter. Like, did Steve Spurrier ever boycott a bowl game press conference?
Tim Reynolds, I wouldn't put it past him, of the AP is the one who had the report. He said the Orange Bowl has canceled its news conference with Kirby Smart and Mike Norvell, which he tweeted this yesterday. The conference was supposed to happen today. He followed it up, quote tweeting it, with a report from Knowles 247 saying, reportedly, both coaches are unavailable, which is the reason for there not being a news conference. He says a VIP-type party featuring members of both athletic departments is still planned, but the news conference is canceled. But this has fueled all sorts of rumors, message board fodder, about Florida State considering boycotting the Orange Bowl.
God, please.
And being more than willing, maybe with even help from the state, in paying whatever financial fee would come along with that. Now, that's not substantial at all right now. But it's a fun conversation. What would you want him to do if you were a Florida State fan?
Oh, what a question.
Like, would you want to let's go out there and stick it to Georgia with our backup quarterback?
I would not want to play Georgia if I was a Florida State fan.
I don't think I would either.
I don't. Well, but that's the thing. How many draft eligible players are opting out of this game between these two programs? Because I think that is like Georgia, the whole roster, or at least the starting 22, are going to look around and be like, I don't think so.
So
is Jared Verse playing for Florida State? Probably not.
I haven't seen Verse make an announcement. I've seen that one of their tackles, Bless Harris, great name, has entered the transfer portal. One of their top wide receivers has entered the transfer portal. They've had a couple guys on defense enter the transfer portal. Patrick Payton, star defensive end. So they're going to be down a lot of guys.
There are going to be a lot of opt-outs in this game. So maybe it's just a complete like mutated version of both of these teams, and you're looking around and be like, all right, house money, let's have some fun.
Is it a lose-lose here, though, where if you opt out, it's a bad look? Right?
What?
I think it is.
No, you're talking about Florida State opting out of the game.
Of the bowl game.
Yeah, no. You can't.
Players do what you got to do.
Yeah, no. Players, okay.
Talking about the program.
100% good with opt-outs for players. Would it be a bad look? Yeah, I mean, you would look like a petulant child, but what about the governor of the state suing the College Football Playoff, Mike Norvell's letter to the College Football Playoff Committee? And I don't want to call Jordan Travis, I don't want to lump him in as being petulant, but he's out here saying, I wish I broke my leg sooner.
Okay.
Like they're kind of throwing a hissy.
What would be a worse look? Saying, we're not playing. Taking your ball and going home?
Which is what I would want them to do.
Or showing up and getting smacked around. Just getting run off the field by the two-time defending national champs.
My fear would be the latter.
Yeah, I think that's what would likely happen. Now, the possibility of winning that game is so enticing that you can finish it out and go claim your national championship and delegitimize the 14 playoff as much as you possibly can.
Which is already delegitimized because it is now, after this year, defunct.
But I don't know what would be a worse look optically.
Sit it out, Mike. Mike. Hey, Mike. Sit it out. It'd be great. It'd be so good. It'd be so petty. Sit it out. There's no way. Brendan Sonnen, I think is how the last name is pronounced. He is the 24/7 sports reporter for Florida State. He shot down a bunch of the tinfoil hat theories about Florida State boycotting the bowl. He said, as Lucas pointed out, that Norvell and Smart unavailable for the news conference portion of the wider VIP event. So nothing insidious about the cancellation of the press conference.
No, it's just a fun conversation. They're probably going to have to show up and play. But Tyler on the F&M Bank chat says playing the game is kind of lose-lose. If they beat Georgia, people will say they won because Georgia had opt-outs, which I haven't seen a lot of opt-outs.
Not yet.
For Georgia. And Tyler says it's all lose, just boycott and give us chaos.
Did you watch Kirby Smart's press conference after he lost? He looked like unprepared to have to tape up.
Yeah, he was pining for getting in.
Yeah, but like I watched it, and I watched it live, and it was just kind of like, I don't know that he didn't expect the question. It was just kind of like he was unprepared to have to pander the way that Saban has been doing for the last 2 seasons around this stuff. It was funny to me. Phones. Marlon is in Springfield. Hey, Marlon.
Hey, what's up, guys? Y'all doing all right today?
We're great.
Man, they made the right decision, man. I'm Florida State through and through, man, but I didn't want another, last year repeat of the championship game. So I believe they did the right thing, man. Nobody want to see, no 33 to 50-something score,
Marlon, it's crazy to me because we have not gotten a single upset call from a Florida State fan. Almost everybody is echoing your sentiment saying, no, we're good. We're good.
That's 3 for 3.
That's wild.
All 3 FSU fans we've had call in have said, yeah, I get it.
Man, they better boycott that Orange Bowl.
I understand now. You had a great season. You were undefeated. Just run away. Run away. Take what you have and sprint away fast. Because Georgia's scary. Colts and Memphis up next.
Hey guys, I agree that Florida State, while it's unfair, I think that's the right decision that they were the odd team out. But I do think they are in a lose-lose situation with the bowl game. If they don't play, I think petulant is the right word. It's taking my ball, going home. But if they go down there and get smoked, which maybe they do, maybe they don't, because Georgia's got a lot of opt-outs, but I think it's likely that they do. It's kind of like, okay, this proved our point. So Florida State's in a tough situation. I think they've got to go play. And I think they got to go dominate. I don't think they will do that, but it's a tough spot for them. Thanks.
Godspeed.
Real quick, speaking of Florida schools, Trevor Etienne, the Florida running back, has entered the portal. That's going to be a huge get for somebody, and that's a big blow to Billy Napier, who desperately needs this recruiting class to stay together, or his seat's going to be red hot.
Isn't it already?
Probably.
It has to be.
Probably, but everything right now with Florida is with an eye towards 2024. But losing your star running back is not going to help anything.
I just think if you're because were him and Heupel hired the same year, or was Napier the year after?
Napier was right after.
Okay, so Billy Napier's going into his 3rd year in that job. I mean, I don't know if you're already doing the eye towards 2024 or eye towards future seasons when the 2 seasons that you've had. I mean, there's been nothing. With a top 5 draft pick, a top 4 draft pick at quarterback, you got next to nothing accomplished. And obviously, since then, you've been a mess. I don't know that Billy Napier's not already a little toasty. Watching Will Levis learn to lead in real time. We got a little taste of that on Sunday. Lucas described him as going to battle against the Colts. He spoke about that yesterday.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzika from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. Titans were back on the practice field Wednesday, getting ready for the upcoming Monday night matchup in Miami. Christian Fulton, Jeffrey Simmons, Joe Jones, Daniel Brunskill, and Josh Wiley did not practice. News this morning in college football recruiting. Blue chip 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton out of IMG Academy, a Tennessee target, announced his commitment to Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. Also in the transfer portal world, star running back out of Florida, Trevor Etienne, one of many names this week, announcing that he is entering the transfer portal. Tonight, Thursday Night Football in Pittsburgh, the 7-5 Steelers hosting the 2-10 Patriots. Kickoff is at 7:15. Westwood One coverage on The Zone starts at 7. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. Show's moving quickly today. Thanks for hanging out here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Mickey will get things rolling at 1 o'clock, but you've got us in the meantime. Phone lines are open. F&M Bank chat is too. Live stream the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Will Levis is the most important thing the Tennessee Titans have going in 2023. Continue to reiterate that point. Monday Night Football in Miami, a daunting test. But Will Levis, though they haven't translated to wins very often just yet, just 2 in the 6 starts that he's made, I'm pretty comfortable saying that Will Levis is kind of, maybe not acing his tests to be the Titans franchise quarterback, but he is at least passing the tests that he needs to try and take over this job. Now, there's a couple of different things that factor into this. Of course, on-field performance, how he looks, how he manages, his level of understanding of what they're trying to execute, his ability to do so, his command of the huddle, all the on-field stuff, that's lumped into one category, right? The off-field stuff encompasses a much larger kind of tent to put a bunch of stuff under, especially the generic term leadership qualities of a franchise quarterback. Is that a fair estimation? Is Will Levis not acing his tests to be the Titans' future, but passing them right now at a 2-4 record?
Is he giving anybody reasons against?
Not really. I'm not saying that the dude is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. If he was, they would win football games. But I'm very comfortable with where Will Levis is right now, and I'm made more comfortable with each passing week of him being their future.
Jael on the F&M Bank chat asks, what questions are on the test?
On the leadership test or just the franchise quarterback test? This is a fun exercise.
The franchise quarterback test, because I think leadership is part of that.
Do you elevate your teammates? True or false? Does Will Levis elevate his teammates? True or false?
True. Their 2 best offensive performances have been with him at quarterback.
True. Will Levis elevates what is around him. What is around him right now is largely dreadful. But they're still getting results to an extent out of a roster that we know to be defunct. Is he a leader in the general sense? That encompasses a lot of different things. He's a rookie, and he seems pretty comfortable with everything going on around him, both dealing with his coaching staff, a coaching staff that holds everybody to a high standard, even though the results on the field haven't indicated that, and guys who are 10-year vets, such as DeAndre Hopkins, who, maybe he told us, well, I'll let you hear from Will Levis on a heated exchange with DeAndre Hopkins where the quarterback thought the wide receiver might have missed an opportunity.
Yeah, maybe I forgot that I was on TV, but yeah. But No, it's just one of those things that just happened. If I would have gone back, I would have been more neutral about it for sure. But that's just part of the, things about being an NFL quarterback and learning along the way of how to be a leader and how to get your guys going. But definitely would have handled it differently if I would have done it again.
Is he a leader in that moment when he's red-faced and, I don't think it's unfair to describe it as red-faced and screaming at DeAndre Hopkins. And by the way, Tim Kelly immediately goes over to DeAndre Hopkins afterwards on the bench and talks to him. Like, Hopkins kind of waves Levis off a little bit. He's doing a little, blah, blah, blah sign at him. And that's fine. DeAndre Hopkins has definitely earned that. And Levis is very, very passionate. I'm sure Hopkins has learned that as well, spending more time with him.
I think you prefer that as opposed to being afraid to say something.
Well, it's kind of like this fine line, right? Yeah, you definitely don't want them passive as a personality. Was that not one of the biggest criticisms of Mariota? Is Tom Brady a leader in these moments when he's red-faced and screaming at teammates? Screaming at them. Cussing them out. Chastising them. Sometimes belittling them. Peyton Manning fits this too. Are those leadership qualities from two of the highest level quarterbacks that we've ever seen play the position? Most people would regard them, I think, in those moments as petulant. Now, Tom Brady gets a lot of that because people got tired of losing to Tom. And you're just looking for any reason to kneecap Tom Brady when you couldn't do it on the field. But that was something that always felt like, to me, was held against Brady, how he handled those moments, even though, clearly and obviously, Tom Brady elevates everybody.
I don't think it was ever held against Peyton.
Though, one of the more famous exchanges is like Jeff Saturday, right? Where him and Jeff Saturday I don't know who's mic'd up in that exchange, but they have them mic'd up for sound. And Peyton and Jeff are going back pretty vigorously on the play that's called, run the play that's called versus what Jeff Saturday and the offensive linemen want to do there.
I mean, his nickname was the Sheriff. I don't think that's something that was ever held against Peyton.
So you have to win. Peyton and Brady, of course, won, and I'm not comparing Will Levis, but Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins having a passionate exchange on the sidelines. In-season Hard Knocks caught it, and people made a big deal out of it, right? Is Kyler petulant or a leader? I'm so fascinated by how people receive these things externally versus how players don't care. That's what's always crazy to me when former players cross over into media. It's funny talking to Ramon about just the general level, and I'm not talking about here at the Zone, but just generally the level of insecurity that permeates the entire media business versus how players are conditioned to just not take things personally in a locker room. They're two different worlds for the most part. Players don't mind those heated exchanges. Mike Vrabel doesn't mind those heated exchanges. Mike Vrabel is often on one end of the other or the other of those heated exchanges. It's a very tense and emotional place in the NFL sideline. You're going to tell me that Colts-Titans is an emotional game on Sunday when you saw the way that those two teams went out there and competed? Where we described Will Levis, and I don't like using the war analogies around football because they're two very different things. But, Lucas, you described Will Levis as heading into battle on a mission, right? Damned if he's going to make those mistakes. He's going to make them at 100 miles an hour. He'll throw a fumble, even though it was an interception, but whatever. NFL officiating. He'll throw the fumble away, but he'll go back out there and force a fumble on the defender that intercepted or recovered it.
If that was ruled an interception, it still would have gone down as that, right? It would have gone down in the stats as an interception by Levis, even though he got it back.
Yes. Yeah.
It is crazy how he has avoided getting that interception number above 2. He only has 2 picks.
It's been hovering around there, even though
crazy.
there's 2 safety plays every week where it feels like Levis is going to throw a pick. And listen, the circumstances of those, I'm not saying that he's turnover prone because obviously the numbers would indicate that he's not. But there are some interceptable passes. There are some missed opportunities. There are some fluky stuff like Sunday where his 3rd interception of the year was ruled a fumble.
He's gotten away with so many of them.
For sure. For sure. But so to get not bogged down by all this, what are the questions on the franchise quarterback test? Do you elevate your teammates? Are you a leader? And on the same side of things, Like what do we associate the personality type of leader with, right? Demonstrative. You don't take orders, you give them. That is a quarterback. Field general, the sheriff, stuff like that, the cliches that we use. But also, is quarterback not the most like, hey, you need to be, while also leading all these other people, you need to be almost to a fault deferential to the people giving you the plays. Is that not the thing that gets the coach to trust the quarterback the most? Kyle Shanahan famously rolls with Brock Purdy because whatever Kyle Shanahan tells him to do, Brock Purdy is going to do to great success. Now, not everybody has Kyle Shanahan, but I think I always find that like that kind of bipolar nature of quarterbacks, ultimate leader and also ultimate good soldier in the same person. Those are kind of the three qualities, if you want to call them that, of what a franchise quarterback needs to be. Based on those three criterion, Will Levis looks like he's going to be functional. Beyond functional, he looks like he could be their future. 6 starts, a larger sample size, 5 more weeks to go, provided that he stay healthy, knock on wood. I think he's passing the tests. Acing them would be wins. They're not winning. And, you can't lean on those qualities forever if the results don't ultimately come to pass. And, at a certain point, patience will run out with him if he doesn't see better production, better results on the field. Randy is calling us from Missouri up next. Hey, Randy.
Okay, how are you?
Good.
Hey, I had just a quick comment on Will Levis. It seems like every week, you guys had already stated, he seems to be throwing balls that seem to be intercepted, like, easily. Do you think, or do you give any notion of the fact that he's putting so much heat on the balls and the receivers are used to catching them, DBs aren't, so that might make it a little bit harder for them to throw, and he's kind of trusting his gun more than he is his eyes. And I'll hang up and listen. I appreciate it.
What do you think of that question? That's an interesting question.
That is interesting.
I don't know the answer to that, Randy, but I'd be happy to ask him.
How do you phrase that question?
That's a good.
Yeah. Do you think the reason you're getting away with these potential interceptions is that you throw it so hard?
Will, are you too emotional when throwing a football that it's made it impossible for the defender to intercept your passes? Are you too passionate? Are you too strong?
I'm not going to act like I've watched Anthony Richardson tape. Like I've seen a couple of his performances. I don't know if this has been a talking point before he went down on Richardson on getting away with interceptable passes, but he only threw 1 pick before being ruled out for the year.
Well, I mean, he only played in, 4 games? 5 games?
Yes.
But
maybe Anthony Richardson would fall under that too. He just throws it too hard. The DBs can't catch it.
So, like, where is the differentiation between, okay, he's getting away with it versus is he seeing things well out there? And how you kind of classify that. Reading a defense is something that people tend to use as a general phrase to kind of evaluate a quarterback. Can Will Levis read a defense? Is there, and I guess with the other sample size being Malik, and we could talk about this coming up next, like what are the biggest differences that you notice when you watch those two players play? And how would you kind of classify those differences? I think that's an interesting discussion. We can have that. We could also talk about how to approach the Dolphins offense. Greg Cosell gave you the game plan to beat them. Whether you can execute that or not, we'll get into coming up next. This seems apt. Is this the theme heading into Miami? They planted on the team playing I won't back down, by God. Titans and Dolphins, Monday Night Football at Hard Rock Stadium. Back-to-back, or head-to-head, rather. Not back-to-back. Head-to-head Monday Night Football games. So Titans are on ESPN. The broadcast crew is Chris Fowler, Louis Riddick, Dan Orlovsky, and Laura Rutledge, which is no B team, by the way. That's a really good crowd to have on the Monday Night Football game. But they're going at the same time as the other Monday Night Football game, Packers-Giants, with, Joe Buck and the main crew on ABC. I thought that was so interesting. Like, they've staggered these things before, and I don't know necessarily. Are we out of bye weeks? Is that why we're double-heading Monday Night Football at this point? Bye week's done?
Yeah, I don't get the same kickoff time. I feel like you could separate it by an hour and a half, and it could make a big difference.
I mean, if you're I would think the NFL would not want. I'd just be curious to hear what the logic behind that was, because they're clearly testing stuff around double Monday Night Football games. Basically, this is going to be the argument for an 18th game. They're going to squeeze another one in on Monday nights.
What's the more compelling game here?
Oh, Giants-Packers. Packers have won like 3 in a row. Is that right?
Why is that the more compelling game?
Because the Packers are the most interesting team.
The Packers are more interesting to you than the Dolphins?
Yeah, the Dolphins are
if your stance is it could be a better game, okay. But if you're talking about the two teams involved, why is Tommy DeVito more compelling than Will Levis?
That's a fair point. Dolphins are only compelling here if they lose. Like, the only thing that makes this a compelling football game is the Dolphins losing.
The only thing that makes the Packers-Giants game compelling is if the Packers lose and they get upset.
I don't think so. I think a Packers win or a Packers loss is equally interesting because, they're now 6-6. Matt LaFleur is like 12-1 in the month of December, something ridiculous. If they win, the Packers in the wild card discussion, Jordan Love looks phenomenal. And Tommy DeVito's not, I don't want to say that he's playing well, but he's not like the worst backup quarterback that I've watched so far this year, right? I don't know.
He's turning into a bit of a cult hero up there.
Oh, sure. I just saw the main NFL account just had him do a sit down with the guy that does Side Talk NYC. You know what I'm talking about? Bing Bong. It's Tommy DeVito and the dude from Side Talk NYC just sitting there doing this the entire time and eating pizza
with the finger motion.
Yeah, I should probably articulate that for the radio audience who's
Italian finger motion.
The emoji.
There's no word for it. It's not an emoji, Buck.
It's an emoji.
Yeah, it is an emoji, but it was a thing before it was an emoji.
No, I'm aware of that. Do you think people more recognize you describing an Italian finger motion? I feel like that could be any number of.
Yes, 100% versus the emoji. Oh, yes, I think people hear the phrase Italian finger motion.
I think you're talking down to our audience. I think you're calling them technologically incompetent.
It's a huge game for the Dolphins.
Sure.
As they look for the AFC's 1 seed, because
every game is a huge game for the Dolphins because of that.
Well, but when you look at their last 3 games of their regular season slate, they have the Titans on Monday. They followed up hosting the Jets, 2 obviously very winnable games. Their last 3 games are Cowboys at the Ravens, hosting the Bills.
Woof.
It's a gauntlet.
The Bills schedule. The Bills are for sure going to miss the playoffs, right? Like their last 5 games are hellish, including Miami, whom they beat earlier in the year, if I'm not mistaken.
They play the Chiefs, the Cowboys, at the Chargers, host the Patriots, who they lost to earlier this year, and then travel to Miami.
Brutal. So Miami has everything on the line, and you're playing with house money, basically, is the argument for the Titans in this game. There's also an interesting way to kind of look at the way that teams have beat the Dolphins this year from an X's and O's standpoint. And again, we've talked about this. The Titans' defense is not playing poorly. They're a middle-of-the-pack defense. Now, that's with Jeff Simmons, and, of course, they will famously be without Jeff Simmons on Monday Night Football. Derrick Henry's status trending in the right direction, but I would still consider somewhat up in the air based on how Mike Vrabel's been talking about it. So, Greg Cosell, we went through this on the podcast. It's called The Install. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the full episodes on Zone TV, which is YouTube. So subscribe to the channel, the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. Greg broke down exactly how teams have been beating the Dolphins on offense and why it's not necessarily all about pressure on Tua.
Well, let's get into the kinds of things they do.
Yes.
Obviously, you have to deal with the speed, and you cannot. It's difficult to play man coverage, and you certainly can't play man coverage without someone over the top. As the Commanders, which I quite frankly didn't understand, on the 78-yard touchdown, it was their only snap of cover one in the game, and it came on the first possession, and they played man coverage to empty, and for whatever reason, they had the post safety cheated to the Twins side, and Hill was number 2 to the trip side. So they had no one over the top of their slot corner, Martin, who's a rookie out of Illinois. So they basically said to the slot corner rookie, well, you're going to have to cover him, and there's no help over the top.
Go get him, bud.
And of course, is he just ran by Martin, and it was a 78-yard touchdown. But let's talk about what they do. First of all, they're a motion offense. No team motions more than the Dolphins in the entire league, and they're phenomenal with motion. And it's multiple motions. It's not just one thing. So you have got to really you have to have a plan for all that, okay? Because that's who they are. That's what they do. The other thing is that empty formations are a part of what they do. So you have to have a plan for that. These are all things you have to work on during the week. You can't be surprised by this, okay? I mean, keep in mind that off motion through 12 games, that Tua has thrown 251 balls off motion, okay? Yeah. So that's what they do. So they give you a lot of eye candy, but it also means something. In other words, it's not, you hear the term window dressing. It's not window dressing, but it's eye candy because it forces the defense to react to things because they see a lot going on. And what that does when there's a lot of motion, it kind of shrinks your defensive menu a bit. You can't get to all your calls because you can't have 20 different calls, that all happen in the space of 5 seconds when you see motion. So it shrinks your defensive menu. Now, the key to playing this offense is you must disrupt the timing between Tua and the receivers. You must do everything you can to take away the first window throws. That's where Tua is absolutely at his best. That's his game. He's the best in the NFL, hitting his back foot and throwing with precise timing and high-level anticipation on in-breaking routes. He's a first window passer. They work between the numbers, and of course they do work vertically when they get that opportunity with the speed that they have. But therefore, coverage becomes more important than pressure in normal down and distance situations because you're not going to get there because the ball gets out too quick because it's all timing and rhythm based and the ball gets out too quick. Yeah. So you're not going to win with pressure. So you have to win and disrupt with coverage. And it's hard. It's not easy. Believe me, I'm not saying it's easy.
So that's Greg Cosell, So what do you make of that? You're not going to win against the Dolphins with pressure. It's a pretty interesting way to look at it because of how quickly the ball comes out in that offense, because of how they set up what Greg is calling their Tua's first window throws and how efficient they are at maximizing how quickly that window opens for him, where the ball is coming out before the receiver hits his break. Like Tua and the level of timing that he's able to execute this offense with are what sets him apart. Do you know where he ranks in average time to throw this year, Tua?
First or second?
He's first. 2.38 seconds.
Where does Levis rank, if you have it in front of you?
Levis is, if Tua is 2.38, Levis is 2.84. So right now, Levis is between Purdy and Lamar Jackson. So out of necessity, the ball comes out. He's not, I don't know if Malik has thrown enough passes this year to qualify, but I'd just be curious if I can Command F this really quick. Malik Willis has not thrown enough passes to qualify for this. I'd just be curious to see what his time. Minimum 105 pass attempts is the cutoff there. Malik has not had 105 pass attempts this year. But if you know that you can't win with pressure in this game and that the coverage is what you're banking on, does that make you feel any better about not having Jeff Simmons? Probably not.
No.
There's no scenario in which you can mitigate not having Jeff.
I don't know how you go into this game feeling good about your passing defense against the Dolphins.
You don't feel good about anything.
Like there's zero evidence to substantiate going in with a good, positive feeling that you match up well, because you don't with the Dolphins passing.
The only way that they win this game, if we're going to talk about this actually, and because they are in the actual football game, they have a chance to win a football game, I suppose. The only way that they win this is if they hold them down in the red zone enough. If they don't so explosive plays are one thing. Explosive plays and touchdowns are another. They don't need the red zone because they score from 60 and 70 yards away.
Their explosive plays result in touchdowns.
Their explosive plays are the death sentence, right? Now, if you can play a red zone game with them, I'm not saying that you may fare better, but it does give you more of a chance, right? If you're keeping them down, if you're at least making the tackles on these explosive plays, you know they're going to get their numbers. You know Tyreek Hill is going to be wide open at some point in the middle of the field, inexplicably, because they have one of the most eye candy-laden offenses out there, and you're just trying to keep your head from spinning against the Dolphins. It's what makes Mike McDaniel so fun. Why is there a call that says just Italian fingers?
Rick has a question.
Rick in Hendersonville has a question about Italian fingers. Hello, Rick.
Hey, I am Italian, and at 70 years old, I have no clue as to what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Italian fingers, Italian finger motion. So please educate me.
This is radio. It's like, thank you for the call, Rick.
Buck's like, Rick, the emoji.
The emoji.
Yeah, that helps.
Does that help, Rick?
Does that help you, Rick? No, didn't think so.
Did not.
So you know exactly what we're talking about, Rick. When Italians talk, we're boisterous and loud.
Well, yeah, but what you're doing right now, you're talking.
I'm just waving my hands.
You're doing a different motion, but you're waving your hands in a specific way.
But
you're waving your hands forward together at the same time. It's almost like a weird swimming motion.
It's all 5 fingers coming together.
Cupped. That's not cupped.
No, not really. But just
we're doing such a bad job of this.
Just bring the tips of your 5 fingers together, and you just motion. That's all. Just wag them at people. It is a very real stereotype. It is, unfortunately.
Unfortunately?
Yeah, it is.
What do you mean, delightfully?
I would love to say that this is not something that Italians do, but it is. Every member of my family, in almost every conversation.
I think some stereotypes are okay to embrace.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying you should stereotype everybody. Now you've got me advocating for stereotyping people. Excellent.
Knocktrop on the FNM Bank chat says, I could see Rick doing the motion while he's asking what it is.
He's literally asking us,
what are you talking about?
What is this? What is this thing? Again,
explain it to me,
We're
please.
doing a poor job for about 150 people live streaming the show, where there are way more of you listening on FM radio based on the numbers. Anyway, Jim Freaking Nant says, is that brushing your hand under your chin? No, that's something different. Don't do that. Unless you're DK Metcalf, who's now signing his celebrations using sign language to celebrate NFL touchdowns, so he avoids fines and also says ridiculous and probably inappropriate things. It's electric. So you understand that the difficulties of the Dolphins offense and the difficulties of the matchups that the Dolphins offense presents. They lead the NFL in total offense. It's 428.4 yards per game. They're second in scoring offense this year. 32 points per game are the Dolphins. Tua's coming off a performance where he completed 18 of 24 attempts. It's 75% of his passes for 2 touchdowns, no picks, 141 rating. Third straight game where he's completed more than 70% of his passes. Third straight, not third of the season, third straight. And 8th this season in total where he's completed 70%, more than 70% of his passes. It is the third straight. He has 7 games this season with 2+ touchdown passes and a rating of 100 or higher. It's the most in the NFL.
They're just so balanced, too. It's the number 2 rushing attack in the NFL.
Well, they're San Francisco. They're San Francisco. They're AFC San Fran. Like, they have accomplished, and one has McCaffrey, the other one obviously doesn't. I think who's the Dolphins?
Raheem Mostert is having a huge year. Huge year.
And he's done that.
He's not Christian McCaffrey, but he's having a huge year, and they have more of a platoon, whereas the Niners had this unique Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel come into the backfield, and who's the other back that Rand Carthon helped bring in there that I'm blanking on, but in San Francisco. But the Dolphins have established a nice rotation with Mostert and Devin Achane, which there's been a million ways to pronounce his name, the rookie out of A&M.
I think you've just made up another one.
And Darrington Evans is a part of that now. Got some carries last week.
Oh, Darrington Evans revenge game.
Oh, God.
I mean, come on. You feel that in your bones.
Just don't let Darrington Evans beat you.
When we've spent so much time this week talking about botched draft picks after they waived Monty Rice, would it not be just poetic, I don't want to call it justice, poetic injustice for Titans fans to have to watch Darrington Evans on national television just torch them?
Elijah Mitchell's the name I was trying to think of.
Former 49er who had injuries there but was a productive running back in that system. They gave Austin Jackson was not regarded as a good offensive tackle prior to Mike McDaniel getting
Elijah
there.
Mitchell. No. Elijah Mitchell's the name I was trying to think of who plays for the 49ers. He is not a former 49er.
Oh, I thought you were saying that Elijah Mitchell is the third back on the Dolphins that you couldn't remember.
No, I was trying to remember the Niners defensive.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misheard you.
Or backfield depth.
Got it. But they paid Austin Jackson today, who is, I mean, he's not getting like top. This again kind of speaks to the free agency stuff for the Titans. Is Austin Jackson a good tackle? He just got $20 million guaranteed. Now, that's not top of market tackle money, but it's not inconsequential. He's probably an average tier NFL tackle. That dude just got paid because they're not letting an average tier NFL tackle leave that offense.
Right tackle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Worth paying attention to as we move closer towards the Titans offseason. Because for those of you who just want them to throw money at the offensive line situation, it's a trap. it's the Star Wars meme, right? It's a trap.
Agent S. Dot in the FNM Bank chat. Crazy to think Raheem Mostert is the exact same age as Le'Veon Bell. 31.
That is wild. Wait, Lev Bell's only 31?
31.
That ended so quickly.
Yeah, my goodness. Mostert, who is an actual former 49er.
He had a touchdown last week. Has rushing touchdowns in 4 of the past 5 games, and in each of the past 2, he's got at least 85 scrimmage yards or more in 3 of his last 4. He leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Did you know that? Raheem Mostert, 14 touchdowns on the year.
Telling you, he's having a huge year.
Pretty good. 615-737-1045 is the number. Last call for phone calls. Time to do some polls next. Oh, goodness. So what happened to the show tomorrow? Why is it so busy?
We are well prepared around here.
Yeah. What are you chewing as you come well prepared to the microphone?
Nutter butter, because the vending machine's out of peanut M&Ms. I'm outraged by it. It's also my fault. I've gotten peanut M&Ms out of the vending machine like each of the last 6-7 days.
7 straight days of eating peanut butter M&Ms?
It's the perfect snack, I've realized, because there's that little bit of sustenance that comes with eating peanuts. And
no, this is not peanuts. It's peanut butter.
Yeah, potato tomato.
No.
Do you want some Nutter butter? It gave me 2.
I don't. Nutter butter? What even is Nutter butter?
Oh, come on.
I'm unfamiliar.
You never had Nutter butter cookies?
No. It doesn't sound very good.
Oh, come on.
Unless they want to spend money on the show, and then, of course, I love them.
You did not have a childhood, man. Getting stocks for Christmas and no Nutter butter.
I mean, is that not evident? I've been 75 years old my entire life.
Alex on the
That's what
FNM.
made turning 30 so easy this summer. I've been old my entire life.
Alex asks, hey, did that 5-star left tackle commit to the Vols? No, he's going to Colorado. I can't believe you've never had a Nutter butter. I dialed it in, and, the vending machine gives you the okie doke, and it's just hanging, and it wouldn't give it to me.
Is that the worst moment of your life when the vending machine almost gives you the food that you're after?
You would have heard me in the hallway going, no, and I smashed it a little bit, and then it gave me 2.
Agent S. says Nutter butter is beneath me. Beneath me, Buck, not him.
He says beneath Buck, yes.
Beneath Buck. Tyler Rogers says, wait, Buck never had a frozen Nutter butter. Is this like what people do with Thin Mints? You freeze the Thin Mints?
Gotta freeze the Thin Mints.
Yeah, that I'm pro.
I put all chocolate in the fridge or freezer. All chocolate.
All chocolate in the fridge or freezer?
Yeah, like those Terry's dark chocolate oranges. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Dark chocolate? Oh, that sounds delightful.
Yeah, that
sounds like something I'd absolutely eat.
Did you see this from Gentry? Well, Derrick Henry said it. I'm reading Gentry Estes of the Tennesseans tweet, where he says, Derrick Henry says he'll hear from Nick Saban just on check-ins after the season. Saban does check-ins after every football season.
Well, that's nice of him.
And Henry says he knows it's Saban because the call is from a private number. Nobody else calls me from a private number.
Who do you think is the most famous person in Derrick Henry's phone?
That'd be a good question for Derek. Better question is, how long is Nick Saban's check-in list after the season? The amount of all-pro.
That sounds exhausting.
First-round pick former players he has that are stars in this league. Is he calling all of them?
I bet he's calling the ones who are still playing. So Julio gets a call. Derek gets a call. Quinnen Williams gets a call. Who else are we leaving? Who are the star caliber? Who gets a private, personal, private number phone call from Nick Saban?
Keep going. Minka Fitzpatrick gets a call. Jalen Hurts gets a call.
Half the league gets a call.
Jonathan Allen gets a call. Does Mac Jones get a call? We know he talks to Belichick. Devontae Smith gets a call. The list is so long.
Literally half the league. Mac Jones gets a call, but it's a their call. It's okay, bud.
I bet Mac Jones gets a call.
Mac gets a call. Mac had the Joe Burrow season without being Joe Burrow. Mac Jones is one of the best players, one of the best statistically players that's ever played college football.
Yeah, Tua set a bunch of records, and then Mac broke them the year after.
Yeah, it's great. It's crazy that we don't talk about Mac that way. Maybe just because the college experience or the professional experience has been so bad. But yeah.
Tyler says Mac Jones gets a text. That's cruel.
Who gets an Instagram DM? Is that like Jonathan Allen on the Commanders? Is this like, hey, I'll DM you on Instagram, bud. I'll like your story. I'll like your story. How about that? How many people in the FM radio audience did I just lose?
Yeah, you lost Nick Saban with that one.
That's probably fair. So we have a lot to talk about. Tajay Spears is on the radio show tomorrow at 12:15. Coach Mack at 11:20. Eric Kane will do some transfer portal stuff with the Vols at 10:20. The whole reason that the show has 3 guests is because Lucas thought I wasn't going to be here and booked it to gills.
Oh, bleep. No one wants to hear me talk for 3 hours.
So you just packed it full of guests. It's my fault, really.
No, now in my defense, I put 2 guests in there, Eric and Mac, who obviously provide some perspective that's very important.
Are you alleging that Spears does not?
No, he absolutely does. You booked Tajay Spears. I didn't realize Tajay Spears was going to join the show, which is great.
So the show is booked that way because I was not supposed to be here tomorrow, and I forgot that I had taken a day off and committed to doing all kinds of work things anyway. So I texted my boss this morning. I was like, hey, can I work tomorrow? It's so stupid. There's no point in me having vacation days. There's really not. It just makes me uncomfortable. Anyway, polls.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed.
This is timely.
And the votes have been tallied. It's time for a poll update. And he's a good boy. Buck Rising show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
Alex Ray says in the F&M Bank chat, Mac Jones doesn't get a text. He gets a letter, a postcard. Saban doesn't want a response.
Oh, well, that's even more thoughtful, though. A postcard takes more effort to send. A postcard's always more thoughtful than a text.
My parents sent me a postcard from India in October, and I just got, in March, and I got it in October. I don't know why that was so wild to me.
Do you still have confidence? By the way, polls are brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. Do you still have confidence that Treylon Burks can be a wide receiver 1 for the Titans? 62% say nope, not happening. 31% still cautiously optimistic. 7% say yes, he'll figure it out.
I am in the no category, even though that feels really unfair. I'm pretty staunchly entrenched in the no category.
Who should win the Heisman? 50% say Jaden Daniels, 26% say Michael Penix Jr., 16% say Marvin Harrison Jr., 8% say Bo Nix.
That's Jaden Daniels.
It is Jaden Daniels. Should Florida State boycott the Orange Bowl? Final results, 50-50 split.
Never happened in the history of the show.
Never once.
The answer is yes, they should boycott it. If not, to be petty and petulant, to avoid getting smacked by Georgia on national television.
How many yards will Tyreek Hill have on Monday? Puka says 202. Darren says 67. Goody says, I don't know, but it'll probably be record-breaking. Anthony says, enough to make me wish we still had A.J. Brown. Burr says all of them. All of the
yards. Not a single other offensive skill position player has a yard for the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. It's just Tyreek.
Hey, Jalen Waddle's hanging out on the other side of that formation, too.
Yeah, the crazy part of Tyreek is he's not been that healthy this year. Like, he's playing through a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, his numbers are stunning.
The guy is incredible.
Those are the polls.
All right. That's the show. Fun show today. Show went fast. Check out the install. It's available on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. If you've not subscribed to that already, what are you doing? You should do that. Great stuff there between the live shows, between the 104.5 The Zone originals, all kinds of good stuff. Prime time tonight at 8 p.m. It's a stinker of a Thursday night football game. Normally, I'd wait until the 2-minute warning. It's Steelers-Patriots. I will see you at 8 o'clock on the dot. Talk to you guys tomorrow morning. We'll have a bunch of fun with a bunch of different guests. You'll continue to have fun the rest of the afternoon because Blaine and Mickey are next.